Hello friends, I hope you're all doing well. My name is Brian, and today we're going to look at a few more stories from Reddit. If you enjoy Reddit stories, why not hit like, subscribe, and maybe even the notification bell. And now, let's move on to the first story of the day. With love, my friends. I never thought posting a wedding photo would stir up this much drama, but here we are. So, I'm Emily, 23, and I just got married to the love of my life, Ryan, who's 24. We tied the knot on August 6th in Denver, and honestly, it was everything I ever dreamed of. The ceremony was outdoors, the sky was clear, and for once in my life, it felt like all the chaos of my family's history faded into the background. But of course, it didn't stay that way. To understand why this picture matters so much, you have to know about my family. My biological dad, Mark, 45, has always been complicated. When I was a kid, he cheated on my mom, walked out, and basically started a whole new life with his now wife, Hannah. She's 36. I was about 8 when it happened. My little brother, Luke, was only 6. And when Mark left, he didn't just leave mom, he left us too. Calls got fewer, visits became excuses, and eventually, it was like he only existed on Facebook. 2 years later, my mom remarried. She met David, 48, who, to me, is my real dad. He stepped into our lives when I was 10 and never once made me feel like I was a burden. He showed up to every soccer game, every school play, every parent-teacher conference, things Mark never cared to be at. He taught me how to drive, sat with me through college application meltdowns, and even practiced my first dance with me for prom when I didn't have a date. So when it came to my wedding, there was no question in my mind who was going to walk me down the aisle. Spoiler, it was never going to be Mark. The wedding itself was beautiful. My dress was simple but elegant, the kind of thing I used to save photos of on Pinterest at 15. Mom cried through half the vows. Luke gave the funniest, most heartfelt toast I've ever heard. And when the music started and David took my arm, I swear the whole world blurred. I was so proud that it was him walking me toward my future with Ryan. It wasn't just a moment, it was a lifetime of love packed into a single walk. After the honeymoon in Maui, our photographer sent us the sneak peek album. Naturally, I wanted to share. I uploaded a handful of photos to Instagram and Facebook, me and Ryan laughing at the altar, Mom fixing my veil, Luke holding the rings, and, yes, the big one, David walking me down the aisle. An hour later, Luke called. He sounded awkward, which isn't like him. He finally said, can you maybe take down the photo of David walking you? Dad's upset about it. I actually laughed at first, because what? Mark wasn't even at the wedding. He had RSVP'd no months before, saying Hannah didn't feel comfortable being left out if she didn't get a role. Apparently, he told Luke that seeing another man in his spot felt disrespectful. Disrespectful. From the guy who skipped my graduation. From the guy who forgot my birthday 3 years in a row. From the guy who bailed on being a father the second he got a shiny new family. Luke told me Mark even said, I would have gone if she had let me walk her down the aisle. The kicker? That was never on the table. There was no universe where I was going to hand him that honor after everything he's failed to do. That walk wasn't just about tradition, it was about showing the world who my real dad was. But now, thanks to Mark's whining, Luke says I'm being petty and rubbing it in. And some cousins have chimed in on Facebook with comments like, air your drama in private, not online. To me, it wasn't drama. It was just my wedding photo. But apparently, I've managed to step on some very fragile egos. And now I'm left wondering, am I really being cruel, or is my so-called dad just upset that the truth is finally public? Luke is the kind of person who hates conflict so much he'd apologize to a doorframe for bumping into it. So when he called again that night, I knew he'd spent the whole afternoon playing mediator in his head. He started, doing that sigh that sounds like a balloon losing air. I'm not saying you need to delete it. I'm just saying Dad's hurt. Hurt, I repeated, staring at the photo on my phone. The one where David's smiling like he's trying not to cry, and my hand is looped through his arm. Like when he missed my recital because traffic in a town with 2 stoplights was brutal? Or hurt like when he forgot to pick you up from practice and you waited in the rain? That was years ago, he said, soft. People change. Then why does he still make everything my job to fix? Luke didn't have an answer for that, so he switched to logistics, which is classic Luke. He said he would have come if you'd asked him to walk you down the aisle. He was invited. He said he wouldn't come unless Hannah had a role in the ceremony, I reminded him. It sounded even more unhinged out loud. My stepmom by technicality wanting a part as if weddings were a community theater show and she was auditioning for maid of honor. He chose not to come. That's on him. We let silence wash over us until I heard him murmur, I just don't want to be stuck in the middle. And that right there was the sore spot. Because when Mark left, Luke and I were both kids, but I learned fast that middle is where kids from split families go to grow up too soon. I promised I wouldn't put him there again. Okay, I said. You're not the messenger anymore. Tell him to talk to me directly. He doesn't have your number, Luke said. He meant it innocently, but we both knew why. I blocked Mark 2 years ago after he called drunk and accused me of turning your mother against me because mom refused to lend him money. I didn't unblock him for birthdays, for holidays, for anything. Peace is a muscle, and I've spent years building it up. I'll handle it, I said. But I didn't plan to unblock him. I planned to keep living my life. Aunt Carol slid into my DMs an hour later anyway, because of course she did. Sweetie, I'm sure David is wonderful, but blood is blood, she wrote, like a fortune cookie you didn't ask to crack open. I typed and deleted 15 responses before landing on, blood is biology. Family is who shows up. She sent a thumbs up, the universal symbol for I disagree but don't want to fight where my church friends can see. Meanwhile, the comments under my post were a split screen of love and subtle shade. My college friends wrote novels about how radiant I looked. A couple of cousins went with the passive-aggressive greatest hits, so happy for you. Hope everyone is at peace with the choices made. Translation, we've been texting in a group chat and decided you're the villain. Ryan offered to take the post down for me so I wouldn't have to look at it. I told him I was fine. I wasn't, but I wanted to be. I made tea, crawled into bed, and let the kettle steam feeling in my chest cool. Before I fell asleep, I found myself scrolling to a different photo, the practice walk from the night before the wedding. It was just me and David in an empty aisle, the chairs still unlined, the altar bare. You sure about this? He joked, squeezing my hand. Because once we do this, I'm going to be insufferable with the dad jokes. I told him I was sure. I still am. The next morning, Mom texted, call me when you're up. Which is her code for I've been awake since 5 a.m. Rehearsing a diplomatic speech. I braced myself, because if Mark couldn't reach me directly, he'd try through her. And I love my mom, but she's a lifelong peacemaker, she'll sort conflict the way some people sort laundry, one gentle fold at a time. I called. She picked up on the first ring. Hey, baby, she said, warm as a sweater fresh from the dryer. So, your father reached out. When Daniel and I got back from our honeymoon in Maui, we were both riding this high of being freshly married. It felt like life had just reset in the best way. Bills, family drama, responsibilities, they were still there, sure, but for the first time in forever, they didn't feel like weights on my chest. We had this little apartment in downtown Brighton, full of mismatched furniture and too many houseplants, and suddenly it felt like the coziest place in the world. A week after we returned, our photographer sent me a sneak peek of the wedding photos. I'd been low-key refreshing my email like an addict waiting for them, so when they finally came through, I squealed so loudly Daniel nearly dropped his coffee. We sat together on the couch, clicking through shot after shot, me and Daniel laughing at the altar, my mom crying into a tissue, Jason standing tall in his suit, looking proud as he walked me down the aisle. That last one hit me in the chest. Jason wasn't just walking me down the aisle, he was carrying years of late-night pep talks, rides to school, patched-up bikes, awkward father-daughter dances, and stern butt-loving curfews right alongside me. He wasn't a placeholder. He was my dad. So of course, I posted it. I uploaded a handful of the photos to Instagram and Facebook, but the one of Jason and me was front and center. My caption was something simple like, couldn't have asked for a better man to walk me into this next chapter. Love you, Dad. It wasn't a jab at anyone. It wasn't meant to start drama. It was just me honoring the man who earned the title of father by showing up when it mattered most. For about an hour, it was pure joy. Friends commented heart emojis. Old high school classmates gushed over my dress. Relatives shared it. I felt proud, loved, celebrated. And then, because life can't let me have a win without twisting it a little, my phone lit up with a call from my sister, Chloe. She didn't even say hello. Her voice came sharp and urgent. "Can you please take down that photo of Jason walking you?" I blinked, confused. What? Why? Because Dad saw it. Cue the sinking feeling in my stomach. I hadn't thought twice about Dad seeing it, mostly because he wasn't even at the wedding. Why would he care about a moment he wasn't there for? But Chloe sighed and explained that Dad had called her, furious, claiming it was disrespectful for me to post a picture of another man walking me down the aisle. I actually laughed at first. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. Disrespectful? This from the man who cheated on Mom when I was 8, who left us for a new life with a woman barely older than my babysitter, who bailed on every major milestone since. That guy? Chloe wasn't laughing, though. He said he would have gone to your wedding if you'd let him walk you. That made me see red. The idea that my wedding attendance was a bargaining chip for him, like if I didn't give him the main role, he wasn't showing up at all, was so on brand, it almost didn't surprise me. Almost. Chloe, I said slowly, there was no universe where I was going to let him walk me. He hasn't been a dad to me in years. Jason earned that. And I'm not taking the photo down just to protect his feelings. Not happening. She went quiet for a moment, then muttered, I just think it looks petty. Like you're rubbing it in his face. That stung, not because I thought she was right, but because it was her saying it. Chloe's always been softer on Dad, more forgiving. She talks to him regularly, visits him and his wife, Emily, on holidays. Part of me gets it, she was younger when everything went down, so maybe her memories are fuzzier, maybe she needed his scraps of attention more than I did. But still. It felt like betrayal to have her side with him in this. After we hung up, I scrolled back through the comments on my post. Sure enough, some distant relatives had chimed in with passive-aggressive remarks, family drama doesn't belong on social media. Or, some things are better kept private. I wanted to scream. How was sharing a photo from my wedding airing family drama? If anything, Dad was the one manufacturing drama out of nothing. For the first time since the wedding, I felt my joy shrinking, replaced by guilt I didn't even think I deserved. I stared at that photo of Jason and me, wondering if posting it was selfish. Wondering if I'd ruined the fragile balance between Chloe and me. Wondering if my bio-dad's shadow would always find a way to darken my happiest days. But deep down, I already knew the answer, I wasn't going to take it down. Not now. Not ever. When Mom called me the next morning, I already knew what the conversation would be about. My mom's voice always has this soft lilt, but when she's about to bring up Dad, it tightens, like she's bracing for me to throw a punch. "Sweetheart," she started, "your father called me last night." I rolled my eyes, even though she couldn't see it. "Of course he did." She sighed. "He's upset about the photo." "Yeah," Chloe filled me in. "Apparently, it's disrespectful to let the man who raised me walk me down the aisle." My voice dripped sarcasm so thick I could have bottled it. Mom didn't laugh. She rarely does when it comes to Dad. "I'm not saying he's right, Em. I don't want you and Chloe to fall out over this." And there it was, the real concern. Not me and Dad, but me and Chloe. Mom's always been terrified of her kids drifting apart. She knows Chloe and I are different people with different versions of Dad burned into our memories, but she still hopes for some impossible unity. "Mom," I said carefully, "I didn't post that photo to hurt him. I posted it because Jason deserved to be celebrated. He's been there for me when Dad wasn't. Why should I hide that just because it makes him uncomfortable?" "I know, baby," she said, gentler now. "And I agree. Jason is your dad. But you know how your father is. He twists everything into an attack. Exactly. That's what made me furious. He was the one who cheated. He was the one who left. He was the one who skipped birthdays and graduations and Christmas mornings. Yet somehow I'm the one making him the victim by, what? Existing happily without him? Did he at least say why he didn't come to the wedding? I asked. Mom hesitated. He told me he felt unwelcome because Hannah wasn't given a role. I barked out a laugh so sharp it startled Daniel across the room. A role? Like what, other woman of honor? Emily, Mom warned softly, but I could hear the smile trying to break through. The thing is, Hannah never once tried to be a stepmom. She wasn't cruel, but she kept her distance. And honestly, I was fine with that. But to show up years later and demand a seat at the table like she'd put in the work? No way. I barely wanted her at the wedding, let alone involved in it. After I hung up with Mom, I sat staring at that picture again. Jason in his gray suit, beaming like he'd just won the lottery. Me clutching his arm, veil brushing my cheek. It wasn't just a photo, it was proof. Proof that someone had chosen me, shown up for me, stayed for me. And that proof made Dad squirm because it highlighted what he'd thrown away. Later that day, Jason came by to drop off a box of extra wedding decorations I'd left at Mom's. When he set it down in our apartment, he gave me this long look, like he knew something was wrong. You okay, kiddo? He asked. I wanted to lie, but Jason's the kind of man who can see through lies like glass. So I told him the truth. That Dad was mad. That Chloe was caught in the middle. That relatives were whispering. Jason listened quietly, the way he always does, then said, Emily, you can't control how people rewrite their own stories. You can only live yours. And if people don't like seeing the truth in a photograph, that's their problem, not yours. Something in me cracked open at that. Because he was right. And because hearing him call it the truth made me feel less crazy for defending myself. Still, when I scrolled through my notifications that night, I couldn't help noticing that Chloe had stopped liking or commenting on my wedding posts altogether. And that stung worse than any of Dad's words. Because losing him? That's something I'd made peace with years ago. But losing her? That's a wound I wasn't ready to carry. A few nights later, I got a text from Chloe. Dad says he just wants respect. Can you at least talk to him? Respect. That word again. Like it was a currency I owed him. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I sat on the couch staring at my phone, replaying the last real conversation I'd had with him 2 years ago, when he called me drunk and blamed me for turning your mother against me. That was the night I blocked his number. Daniel noticed me spiraling and asked what was wrong. When I told him, he just shook his head. You know he's not mad about a photo. He's mad because it shows the truth. Jason's been your dad. He hasn't. I knew he was right. But guilt is sticky. Even when logic scrapes at it, it clings. Later, I caved and called Chloe. Listen, I said, I'm not punishing you for talking to him. But I'm not pretending he was a good dad when he wasn't. Jason walked me down the aisle because he deserved to. That's not disrespect. That's honesty. She was quiet for a while, then said, I just don't want to lose both of you. That hit me harder than anything Dad could have said. A week passed before Dad finally reached out directly, through Facebook, of course. He left a comment under one of my photos. One day you'll understand what respect really means. I stared at it, my stomach twisting. It wasn't even subtle. He wanted everyone to see it. For 10 minutes I debated deleting it, then decided to just block him altogether. It felt like shutting a door I should have locked years ago. That same night, I called Chloe. If he has something to say, he can say it to me, not through you. Don't let him drag you into this anymore. She sighed, and I could tell she was torn. I know, it's just hard. I forgave him a long time ago. I haven't, I admitted. And I don't think I ever will. That's the difference between us. After we hung up, I sat in bed scrolling through the photo again, the one of Jason walking me down the aisle. And for the first time since posting it, I didn't feel guilty. I felt proud. A few days later, Mom called again. "Your father hung up on me," she said, almost laughing. I told him Jason deserved that honor, and he didn't like hearing it. Apparently, he'd launched into a speech about loyalty and how I'd embarrassed him in front of family. Mom cut him off and reminded him he'd embarrassed himself years ago when he chose Hannah over his kids. That was when he slammed the phone down. Meanwhile, Hannah posted something vague on Facebook: "No matter what happened in the past, family is family." I didn't reply, but I screenshotted it and sent it to Daniel with the caption, translation, "We're the victims here." Daniel replied with a string of laughing emojis and, "Don't let them rent space in your head. Jason's the one who matters." He was right. Every time I thought about taking the photo down, I pictured Jason seeing that empty spot where his moment used to be. And I refused to erase him just to soothe a man who'd already erased himself from my life. By then, the whispers in the family group chat had gotten louder. An aunt wrote, "Maybe just delete the picture so everyone can move on." A cousin chimed in, "It's not worth the drama." But here's the thing, it wasn't drama until Dad made it one. I hadn't tagged him, hadn't mentioned him, hadn't even thought about him. He inserted himself, then acted wounded when the truth didn't flatter him. Jason noticed I was quieter than usual at Sunday dinner and asked what was going on. When I told him, he shook his head. If you take it down, it'll look like he wins. And you'd be hurting me in the process. Don't do that to make him comfortable." That settled it for me. I left the photo up. If anything, I posted more wedding pictures: Jason fixing my veil, him hugging me after the ceremony. Each one a reminder of who showed up. The likes rolled in, and yeah, a few relatives stayed silent. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't care. Eventually, Chloe and I sat down in person. It was awkward at first, just coffee between us, both waiting for the other to start. Finally, I said, "I'm not asking you to pick sides. I'm asking you to stop asking me to protect him." She looked down at her cup. "I just don't want to lose Dad. And I don't want to lose you either." "I'm not going anywhere," I told her. "But I can't pretend he was a father to me." That photo wasn't about shutting him out. It was about honoring the man who stepped in. Her eyes softened. She didn't say she agreed, but she didn't argue either. And honestly, that was enough. Later, I messaged Jason to thank him again. He wrote back, "You don't need to thank me for being your dad. That's the best job I've ever had." It made me cry, but the good kind, the kind that comes from knowing you made the right choice, no matter who's angry about it. In the end, I never took the photo down. Dad stayed blocked. Hannah kept posting her vague family first quotes. And the relatives who thought I was airing drama eventually moved on to gossip about something else. What didn't fade was Jason. Every time I look at that photo, I see more than a wedding. I see years of late-night study sessions where he quizzed me on history flashcards, Saturday mornings fixing flat bike tires, awkward but heartfelt talks about boys, and quiet car rides where he reminded me I could do anything. That's what that walk down the aisle was, not just a tradition, but a lifetime of fatherhood condensed into a single moment. If Dad feels disrespected, that's on him. He had decades to earn that honor and didn't. Jason did. And I won't apologize for showing the world the truth. Because in my heart and in that picture, Jason isn't my stepdad. He's simply my dad. And that's the story I'll keep telling, no matter how uncomfortable it makes the man who walked away. So much for being here. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care. And much love.